The Madlanga Commission Commissioner Advocate Sesi Baloyi has questioned the Hawks Durban Unit Commander, Colonel Gavin Jacob, about why the detention notice for the container carrying 541 kilograms of cocaine was not recorded in the police investigation diary. He continued to testify before the Madlanga Commission, and for more we cross to our reporter station there, Canny Maphanga. Canny, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, just a short while ago, we saw a verbal showdown between Colonel Jacob and the commissioners. Can Jacob really claim ignorance on some of the key issues given his seniority as the unit commander of Durban Serious Organised Crime? Or did you get a sense that the commissioners themselves did hold him to a higher standard of knowledge and accountability?
Essentially, the test this morning has been about this contention, or rather the defense by Jacob, that instead of looking for nearby police stations to house those high-value exhibits cocaine, he had exhausted those particular police stations and needed to move to the Port Shepstone storage facility. Now, this questioning becomes important because the Port Shepstone storage facility, we already know in the main that it was a facility that didn't meet the security standards to house high-value exhibits of cocaine. Now, he has told the Commission in his testimony and in his statement that he had exhausted all the options surrounding this particular port, which is at least 4 police stations that could have housed those high-value exhibits of cocaine. And it is against that premise that he says that he contacted his management, which includes Brigadier Nyuso, who then told Major General Lesejo Sonona, and they came to the decision that these drugs must go to the Port Shepstone facility. Now, those drugs go missing later on under a mysterious incident where there was load shedding, and of course they were able to break into that facility because we do know that its security monitors such as CCTV and those beams do not work when there's no electricity in the building, because it's an admin building, not a 24-hour police station, as one would expect a person to place those high-value exhibits of cocaine in that particular facility. Now, the difficulty with Jacob's testimony is because the overall allegation that they face as DPCI officers is that they deliberately and intentionally created an avenue for those drugs to go to Port Shepstone so that they would allegedly be stolen. So this is why this line of questioning is quite important, because it's about establishing the reasons behind why he chose to go, or rather report to his managers, that he had exhausted all options. Now, if the Commission has successfully dismantled this reason that he says he exhausted every single police station that was around him, then it leaves the question mark as to what the possible motive could have been behind taking those drugs to Port Shepstone when there were nearby police stations that could actually house those high-value exhibits of cocaine. What the evidence shows is that he actually never called to ask any of those particular facilities if they had space to house those 541 kgs of cocaine. The spreadsheets that you see Advocate Silo going through shows you that in each police station, they're actually housing drugs to the value of a lot of kgs, let's put it that way. I think the greatest is 999 kgs of cocaine that was stored in the Maiden Wharf facility, that is the police station there, which is not too far from that Durban harbour. And that particular storage took place way before that June 2021 drug bust. So it means that the space existed, and had he inquired, he would have been able to house those 541 kgs of cocaine in that particular facility. So effectively what he did is that he assumed that those police stations didn't have the storage space, and then of course created an avenue for a different storage to be sought out, which was the Port Shepstone facility. And the Commission will be able to ask more questions to get to the bottom of why he took this particular route. They've been able to dismantle his defense that he in fact knew there were no storage facilities, because it shows in the evidence that he didn't ask. And the evidence counters this claim that he makes, or rather assumes, because through the spreadsheets you see that there is more than enough space and more than one of those 4 police stations to house those high-value exhibits of cocaine. Keep in the back of your mind that the allegation is that they deliberately wanted those drugs to go to Port Shepstone to facilitate this incident that takes place there, and that there was never an intention for those drugs, to go to the forensic science laboratory there in Pretoria to be examined and then of course destroyed there, and the drugs will be dealt with in terms of the prescripts there. So now with that left out, it leaves the Commission with more options to get to the true reason behind why Jacobs responded to this incident in that particular manner, and it cannot be the issue, or rather the reason that he has advanced before the Commission that he didn't have any storage space in Durban and he had to seek out a different venue. It seems that that reason is pretty much, quite frankly, false before the Commission, and he has to come up with a different explanation as to why he ignored all of the police stations around him, didn't seek any answers with respect to storage there, and chose to go to Port Shepstone instead. We expect that that questioning will continue at about 11:35 when the Commission returns from its tea break. It's over to you in studio.
Now, just before I let you go, Kenny, I mean, the Commission heard that a decision had already been taken back in 2017, I believe, that DPCI officers should not store exhibits. Yet, the 541 kilograms of cocaine was stored at the Port Shepstone Hawks offices in direct violation of that standing order. So, who in the chain of command is accountable for that violation?
Well, I think it starts with Jacobs himself, and then it goes up to the management of the Hawks. And of course, Sinona himself, as the KZN Hawks head at the time, will have to answer to that allegation when he returns to the Commission tomorrow. But it basically starts at Jacobs, who then says he had exhausted all of those options surrounding him. We now know that that cannot be true, because a simple exercise of looking at the spreadsheets of the high-value exhibits that were being stored in the various police stations were over 541 kgs, let's put it that way. So there was space that existed there. He uses that particular assumption as a reason to call Brigadier Nusa and tell him to secure a different storage facility. And we know that that must also be a police station. But it seems that Nusa and Sinona take a decision to take it to a storage facility that is an admin office, not a 24-hour police station. Now, because of those security risks and the fact that its systems don't work during load shedding, it created an opportunity for those drugs to be stolen during a period of load shedding. And the Commission is now tasked with trying to understand why. What was the possible motive? Were these particular police officers working with those alleged cartel syndicates and actively participating in that rip-on, rip-off method, where they take those drugs from the ports and ensure that they go to the intended recipients or back to their owners once they smuggled into South Africa? So that is the core question that must always remain at the back of your mind when they're questioning these witnesses about their conduct in light of this particular drug bust, because it seems that the pure intention was allegedly to get those drugs at that particular storage facility so that they could allegedly be stolen. And that is what the suspicion around these drugs, that is the 541 kgs of cocaine worth 200 million rands, is about. And Jacobs is at pains to try and distance himself from that, but his very own conduct raises suspicions, or rather, should I say, gives credence to those suspicions surrounding the drug bust that is of Port Shepstone, 541 kgs of cocaine. And I think what the Commission has done is that they've eliminated this defense that he states that he didn't have nearby police stations to house those drugs. It simply can't be true in light of the evidence before the probe, which shows that several high-value exhibits of various different drugs were being housed at the various police stations at different quantities, even going up to 999 kgs. So if 999 kgs could have been stored in Maiden Wharf, then surely prior to that, you could have stored 541 kgs of cocaine. And why he assumed that was not the case is really what is at the bone of contention now before the Commission, because they have to answer as to what that possible motive behind their decision to move the drugs to Port Shepstone was.